without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them, but they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money, and those records are being deliberately, willfully suppressed, and they shouldn't be suppressed. If the accusation is allowed out, so should the material that diminishes the credibility of the accuser. We want total transparency on this. Every single document, no redaction. That's what I've said from day one. I waive any of my rights of privacy. Anything there is about me, I'm happy because it will be exculpatory, because I know I haven't touched a woman other than my wife from the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even hug people, but I was falsely accused and I was able to prove it. And I was able to prove it through documents. And I want other people to be able to disprove false accusations through documents. But these documents are being suppressed and withheld.
Well, accusations and counter-accusations, denials, and all sorts of things regarding the Jeffrey Epstein matter. This is Behind the News on Voice on the Move Network. Welcome to this evening's edition. My name is Elijah Mhlanga. Thank you very much for joining us on this live conversation where we are keeping each other up to date with the latest in the international front when it comes to news and those matters that are affecting some of us. Others are matters that are just of interest. But of course, we want to follow these matters and go behind the scenes to check what is driving these emotions that are rising on a whole range of issues that are taking place across the country. It's either matters that are affecting nations or matters that are affecting people who belong in certain nations. At the end of the day, we're all interested in these matters. We are all affected by these things, either directly or indirectly. So welcome to this edition of Behind the News this evening. And as I said, my name is Elijah, and I'm joined this evening by Joe Mhlanga, who is a commentator on matters of international relations and anything else that matters, anything else that you may want to know about or even get a different perspective. Tonight, we are inviting you to make a comment on any of the matters that we'll be talking to. We are starting with the matter of Jeffrey Epstein, who was a billionaire in the US, a financier, but also a man accused of many sexual offenses. And when he died in 2019, there were speculations regarding a list of clients that he apparently had. But as per the latest news, at least based on what I've seen, it seems there was no such list. But of course, we are going to delve deeper into this discussion to find out if indeed the list existed or there is a cover-up that is currently taking place in this matter, because there were a lot of people who were suspected to be involved on this one. There could be a cover-up as well, as some are suspecting that some names are too sensitive to talk about. That's why there are attempts to try and make sure that the identities of the involved persons remain unknown to protect their businesses, to protect their profiles, to protect their image, to protect their reputation, and to protect their integrity, if there's any that's left. Anyway, let's get to it. Joe, what's been your reading in terms of this matter of Jeffrey Epstein? I see that the US President Donald Trump has had some comments to make as well. But what is the latest from what you've been reading and what you've been researching and talking to some of your associates regarding this matter? Because it's a huge one. It involves millionaires, it involves rich people, it involves people of influence. What's your take on this one? What generally just your initial response to the matters, particularly this one regarding the list?
Yeah, it's very interesting because we listen to politicians campaigning saying, no, we'll make the list public. We'll get all our soldiers from Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan. We will make sure we stop all the wars. We will prioritize on Americans. Obama said the same thing. Bush said the same thing. Trump said the same thing the first time around. Trump came back when he was campaigning on the first time. He said he's going to ensure that the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will be released immediately he comes to the office. He didn't do it until he finished his term, and people thought, no, the term was short. He used the Epstein list to campaign, to say he's going to make sure it's declassified, it's going to be put out there, arrest will be made. And now he said, what list? And there's been a lot of talk, because since he had the fallout with Elon Musk, Musk did threaten to say, because you are in the list, I'm going to make the list public. And all of a sudden, things died down. But now it's coming back again, and he is now being fingered to say he was too close to Elon Musk. Now he's suing Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is the owner of Fox News, another oligarch, a billionaire, original from Australia, but based in the US now. So my assessment is that the Epstein list contained both the Democrats and Republicans together, because Epstein was a Mossad operative. The Mossad operative operating in the US is to ensure that American government is captured. So you cannot capture a government from one party. It was both parties, though majority of the people were Democrats. Some of the pedophiles and these sex traffickers and sex offenders are in both parties. They are all these elite people. So it's strange that when Trump was campaigning, he was using that as a ticket to say, one, I will stop the wars. Two, look, he killed Qasem Soleimani at first in Iran, the Iranian general, but he was killed in Iraq, coordinated with Mossad, Israel. Now, when he was campaigning, a lot of Muslims voted for him because he spoke on the lines along peace, and now they feel betrayed. He bombed Iran. So he goes against everything that he said. But now here's another question we need to look at, is that are these guys, was it his will to make the list public until the guys in black suits said no, because you are going to be exposed as well? That's another story. But remember, on that list, there was a list that linked. There is Cape Town, I think there's PE, it did, that plane landed in South Africa at some point. There are victims in South Africa. So we don't know the list of people in South Africa who they are. Because on that plane that landed in Cape Town, Chris Tucker was there, Bill Gates was there. These are the two people. The more you see the flight log list, John Legend is there, Akon is there, Lenny Kravitz is there, Michael Jackson is there. Was it deliberate for us to see those people? Or was that one part of the list? Because it looks like almost every big business person, big billionaire, big musician, Sony executives, Warner Brothers executive, Hollywood executives, everyone is in that list. And they're all holding on to Trump now not to make the list available. But here's the problem that might happen again. The next person to come into power might want to take advantage and say, no, let me just release this. And then, but if that person was also there in that and is also captured, it's going to be a problem. Now, look at the strategy that was used by the selectors of the president. Look at Trump's number 2. Is a guy that comes from an NGO with zero record of criminal element, fresh from that organization. It was a civil society who was groomed that should this guy collapse, is going to take off. All of a sudden, there is a survey that was done in the US to say he is a favorite to win the elections in 2028. Are they telling us something? So is he in the list? No, he's not in the list. Most of the people he has around him is a younger generation. It's only him on top there. But it looks like now these issues of him running away from the list will excite some of the people within his inner circle. There's rumors of him being sick. There's rumors of him not sleeping. There's rumors of it. So there is an effort, and that's why they're not interrupting him when he's making these mistakes of saying what list. Meanwhile, his inner circle is saying, yes, he is there. So he is covering for himself his political survival, because if he goes down with this, there's so many people that will need to be exposed. So this cover-up has to be there, has to be done to protect one another in that elite world. Yes, the list is there. The Russians are in position of the list. The Iranians are in position of the list. But who is actually in the midst of this? Israel is controlling this whole thing, because all these people that got into trouble is because the Jewish Zionist billionaires funded Epstein and Epstein to control all these people. Why was Epstein keeping log sheets? Why was Epstein having that black book? Why was he documenting these things? We know that Epstein was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who was a Mossad operative, who died in his yard mysteriously. We don't understand how he died. So if you follow the money, if you follow how this thing moved, for somebody that did not have a qualification, who became a maths teacher, who bought the biggest houses, he was reporting to somebody. So Israel is very happy when they see this chaos of all these guys in America running like headless chickens, that they don't. So the black man is actually working in the whole of American administration. That's why they get involved with the tariff, the wars, to try and divert. Watch another smoke screen coming in the next couple of weeks. Americans are going to be kept busy focusing on something else so that they can shift away from this Epstein list. And that is my opinion. And we'll come back to the same show and say, these are the events that are happening so that people can forget about this Epstein list. Because now there's no any other scandal. Now the whole focus is in this Epstein list. The people that are protecting the president are busy trying to cook up something that will make the president get away with this, with his other cronies.
Yeah, I've been wondering, what is in this list, because for me, Epstein operated in the open. He had clients from celebrities, politicians, artists, people in various fields, and he was managing the assets of these people. And to a large extent, he was exposed to their wealth. You got to see how much they have. You got to know where their money comes from. And I think for me, by the way, you just mentioned that he was just a science teacher. He was a maths and science teacher, by the way. So he's a brilliant man who had displayed knowledge and understanding of how things work. He moved from teaching and he went to the world of finance, which is how he got into the wealth management. But the point that I want to make is, what is wrong with being Epstein's client? Under normal circumstances, would give our wealth to a wealth management consultant to manage it for us. What is inherently wrong with Jeffrey to the extent that people don't want to be associated with him? Yes, I know that he pleaded guilty to sexual offenses in 2008 and trafficking and all those things. I will also want you to touch on the cause of his death. It was determined to be suicide in 2019. But is it as clean as it is, or there's foul play in that regard? But let's talk first about just the issues around being a client of Jeffries. I don't understand why there would be issues in that regard. I'm asking this from a lay person's perspective, where you say, what's wrong with being, or with having been a client of a wealth management consultant with such a gift, to the extent that his wealth was measured at between $500 million to $1 billion, which means was doing well in business, and because the support that he needed, he had a good reputation for him to be able to attract well-known persons. I mean, if you look at the list, it's the who's who of the world in terms of politics, entertainment, and other areas of life. But what's wrong? Why are people reluctant to be associated with him? Because he was arrested for stuff that's related to his personal conduct. But why would you now not want to be associated with him? What are the issues there? What's the story behind this whole mess?
The major issue was that there were girls from around the world that were recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell. Some were groomed, that were taken into a specific island. So Epstein had so much money that he bought his own island where boys and girls will be taken. The flight list that we're talking about are people who travel in his private jet to go to that island. So what was happening in that island, underage kids were raped, were forced into performing sex with each other while they're being recorded. There was a lot of abuse that happened there. So morally, it was incorrect. Nobody would want to be associated with somebody who abuses children. That's point number one. No matter how much the company can be the best in asset management, but now we will question you. Why are you associated with somebody that will turn around and abuse my children? Are you abusing your own children? So that the stigma in our society started like that, and majority of those people are doing big business. So some companies will cancel everything. They'll distance themselves to say, yes, you keep your money with us. Either we freeze it or we give you back your money, we close your account. So the stigma was used. The fear mongering was used for celebrities, for big business, for big billionaires to either be arrested because it's against the law. These were underage girls. Some were killed there. Some died by suicide. There's so many things that happened in that island. So the whole idea, you might have seen it with Puff Daddy as well. Most people started distancing themselves because of the issues around the abuse. But for Epstein, it was the underage girls and boys that were abused. So people all of a sudden didn't want to be. Like Bill Gates said, no, I didn't know. And that led into his divorce with his wife, to say, this guy was associated with someone who abuses children. So my children are not safe. Then that's what Melinda gave the reason to divorce Bill Gates. And Bill Gates said, no, why are you asking me about someone who's dead? He's dead, so let's forget about it. That's a statement that Bill Gates said. Now Trump is coming to say to you, there's no list. The list was cooked up by the Democrats. This was not a political thing, because this guy, who is a financier, he was controlling both parties. We know how this works. You find both sides of the conflict. So it can't be that it's normal that you are associated with somebody who sleeps with small babies and do all those acts. So the stigma around him and the people that were involved, a plan had to be cooked, either to make him escape, either to kill him if he was going to sing, because even the story, there's a lot of things. The other rumor said he's not dead. They put someone else because he was pronounced dead in hospital in one report. In the other report, he hanged himself with a sheet, but where were the guards? He was known that he's a high risk. The cameras were off on that day. There's no footage. There was no guard. But this is prison we're talking about, with someone with so much power. So there is an idea from other people to say, I remember they were analyzing the ears of Epstein and the ears of that person that was declared dead. We have not heard about the public viewing of him using the technicalities that he died in prison. So it's a state property. So they don't have to show you anything. So now you'll tend to think that who controls that prison? Because majority of the prisons in the state are privatized. Who controls that prison? Was the actual owners of the prison in the list? So was it the deal cut? So since we know that Mossad controls American politicians, and you will find that that private prison was owned by a Zionist Jew, so they will protect their own. We have no proof that Epstein is dead. He might have been somewhere because there's conflicting stories. They found him dead in one report. The other report was declared by the nurses in hospital. But every prison has their own hospital, especially when high-profile people like that go. Why did the ambulance drive out of the prison to go to a different hospital? So it left a lot of gaps, and we know how Mossad operates. It left a lot of gaps there, but the aim of that was to blackmail and taint certain group of people so that when a particular time comes, you will either sign this executive order or we'll expose you into this. We will do this or this. We'll do this or this. So now the Epstein list was used to blackmail people to a point where even the person who's supposed to announce or he's also in that list. So the whole idea of people not wanting to be associated with Epstein, the core is the values, is the moral that when you sleep with children, when you abuse children, it becomes a challenge. That is the core of the story.
All right,
but
no,
whether
it makes sense.
we're not sure because there's conflicting stories about that. Too many questions surrounding him. And you can't be a billionaire and you go to prison when there's no guard, when there's no cameras. It's impossible.
No, the suspicions around his mysterious death will remain for a very long time, especially if the conflicting reports are not clarified, as long as the conspiracy around the cause of his death and whether he's indeed dead or not continue, because we've been told that people go and live happily in islands somewhere where no one gets to see them. Some change identity and they just move away from normal life and continue to enjoy their lives somewhere else. But I understand your explanation. You seem to be implying that this story, while it may be a social matter, it's got political implications for persons like Donald Trump, who is a president of a country as big as the United States of America, with tentacles all over the world. But also the fact that the person in focus here, Jeffrey Epstein, was in control and was a person of influence, affecting a lot of people, politicians, business people, artists, celebrities of different types. So it makes sense that Trump may as well be trying to protect his associates, especially those that would have supported him towards his election. But it's something that we'll continue to watch because, of course, the issue of the list remains a thorny issue being discussed. And now, as you indicated earlier, between the Republicans and the Democrats, it's now a ping pong issue where the one party accuses the other, all arising from this issue of Jeffrey Epstein. But let's move on to another matter now that involves the same person, the President of the US, Donald Trump. And this got to do with the Ukraine conflict, where, in fact, I also saw a comment before we come to the Ukraine conflict. I saw a comment where Trump is saying that if there were to be a new nuclear site in Iran, he's going to destroy that too. Can we just talk a bit about that? Why would he want to do this? Do you think perhaps it's still part of a diversion strategy in terms of attention from his alleged sickness and maybe the issue of the Epstein list as well? The threat is making against Iran. Could that also be a way of diverting attention from US internal issues to somewhere in the Middle East or Far East?
Oh, yes, that's for sure, because it is known that the mission that they went for in Iran has failed. The attacks that they claimed, they even put a display in Pentagon to show this is where we hit the bomb that we dropped. It was this much of grams it went. They know that everything that they did. So there is a chance that the Israelis are uncomfortable, and the fact that they attempted to kill the head of state last week in the meeting that the Iranians had, and they had to escape through the tunnels there. So, and Iran had to respond, and you did not see much of media friends about that story, because the impact that happened in Israel, part of Israel was flattened because of that kind of response. So because all these guys are controlled by Zionists in this list that they find themselves in, they will have to continue and serve the agenda. He will have to divert. He will have to be like Benjamin Netanyahu, go to war and, to avoid prosecution in your country. So we'll see the same strategy. Netanyahu has been engaged in, now it's about 8 or 9 wars that is actively involved with, just so he doesn't get to sit and have his day in court, whereby he will have to answer for his corruption charges. So he's using the war to divert the attention. Trump will also apply that. And Iran is getting itself ready to ensure that they will have to respond harshly. But these two politicians, Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump, will use the people. How many people are going to die for somebody being selfish and run away from his own scandals? Yes, Trump will do something to ensure that he runs away from anything that will make him appear weak. If Trump had his way, he would be 16 again, so he can live longer. He behaves like he's running out of time. Today he's telling you this, tomorrow he's telling me that. Sometimes you can tell that his bosses gave him a script and a mandate, and he's trying to change it. And then they said, no, go back. We want you to do this. So these two guys, you can tell that as much as they appear to be strong-headed, but who is behind them? Who is giving them orders? Who is telling them what to do? Because some of the things they say and do, you can tell that they don't necessarily subscribe into it, but there's a particular agenda that they're pushing. Therefore, Trump will do anything and everything in his power to divert the attention for the embarrassment that is coming face to face with. So yes, Trump will go all out to make sure that he protects himself by any means necessary.
Yeah, just on that whole issue of politicians, presidents, leaders of powerful countries using wars to retain power. How long do you think Netanyahu will be able to sustain this particular strategy? Because war is expensive, but years also go very slowly, especially if you are looking at the issues that are awaiting you in terms of prison, but also in terms of election terms that keep on passing and you keep avoiding. And day after day, you create one war, you make this statement going in one direction, creating conflicts all over the place. For how long do you think we'll be able to sustain that? That's the first part of the question. But the second part of the question is the Israelites themselves. How do they feel about this? Is this something that they're accepting? Why would they allow him to continue to do what he's doing?
I'll start on the last question. In the Israel community, there's two factions. In fact, globally, there's two factions. There's one, the Judaism people who believe in the Torah. That's one. Two, the Zionists, the racists, the radicals, the right-wingers, who are excited, like your Ben Vir, who was born in Iraq, by the way, who hates Muslims, but he was born in Iraq, Iraqian Jew. To those guys, they want that. That's why they were able to do the coalition government with him. But he's standing in one leg now. A portion of the coalition group is now walking away because the Orthodox Jews, they don't want to be conscripted into going to the front lines. They're saying, no, we are the Jews. They're subscribing to Judaism. They are not Zion. So their part in getting involved with this, it was just to see the state of Israel safe. But it's no longer safe with them because now they have to go to the front lines. Now, that one party, it's 1 foot out. Now it leaves the coalition to hang in the balance. Hence, in that truce that they had, Ben Vir and this party said they will walk away if there's a truce in Gaza. So there are right-wingers, settlers that want to see the war happening because they believe that Palestinians, they have to be inhaled, they have to disappear so that they can take over the whole entire land that God promised them. Remember, Zionists don't believe in God, but when it comes to that land, it's God that promised them 3,000 years ago. But they come from Europe, Poland, New York, Brooklyn, Australia. They go to that land because God promised them 3,000 years ago. Now you ask which God is that promised them. Now you struggle to understand which God because they don't believe in the normal God that everyone else believes in. Hence, there's a separation between the Zionist and the Judaism groups. So that is one area in the reality on the ground. Majority of the people are protesting every day. Mainstream media does not show you that there's protest in Israel almost every day to say Netanyahu must resign, the war has to stop, we need to live side by side with the very same people who accommodated us here when we came with nothing. Now we're killing them. There's other parts. So mainstream media that owns by the Zionist Jews won't show you that because they want to perpetrate and push the agenda of how much Israel is killing the Palestinians. So in people's minds, it can look like Israel is winning. No, and it's not winning. It's not working. Economically, the economy in Israel is bad. The harbors of Israel are bad because the Houthis in Yemen, they block the choke point. So no ships are going to Israel easily. They have to go around extra 21 days. So it's not happening. So economically, it's not happening. Americans can pump money every year and send weapons there. It's only benefiting them. The military-industrial complex, it's making money out of all these wars that are happening at the expense of innocent lives. People who Marandong born.
Hey, Maranga, Minanga, very Mexico.